It was pole position for Oscar Piastri in a front row made up entirely of McLarens, with Norris in second, but 2/10 behind in the same car in what was supposed to be a close fight. So up to this point, Piastri keeps showing his claws. The current championship leader is not willing to give up the lead so easily. Verstappen was third, but it wasn't all smooth sailing because he was never really in contention for pole position at any point. And Bortoleto made it to Q2, finished 12th, his best starting position, and I dare say, without a doubt, his best qualifying so far in Formula One. So let's quickly talk about qualifying in this Saturday video. Clear skies, 29 degrees, 47 on the track, and 3 sessions led up to that point by McLaren. Norris, Piastri, and Piastri. 11 o'clock in the morning in Brasilia, 1600 local time in Barcelona. It was time to find out if Formula One would see any changes in the pecking order among the cars after so many updates. As I mentioned yesterday, 9 out of 10 teams brought new parts due to the technical directive and the car's development schedule. Sauber, for example, with Gabriel Bortoleto and Nico Hülkenberg, brought new parts, and the Brazilian was 11th in the last session before qualifying this morning, Saturday. And everything would start to be answered right away in Q1. The Haas cars were the first to hit the track. Esteban Ocon went out and set a 1:14.0. Then Stroll, Colapinto, and Alexander Albon, drivers from midfield teams that sometimes snatch points from Mercedes and Ferrari, set a 1:13.699. There were 5 minutes of little activity on the track until suddenly there was a spark and everyone went out on track at the same time. Hülkenberg briefly appeared at the top with a 1:13.499, 2/10 faster than the Williams. Bortoleto, on his first attempt, was 0.429 seconds behind his teammate. As I always say here, glass half full or half empty, it also shows how far you can go with the car, or even further, because after all, that's what's desirable, that's what's expected, even for him to go faster than his teammate, right? The first of the front-running cars to set a time was Antonelli with a 1:13.3, but he ended up far behind because Norris then came through and did a 1:12.799, 7 thousandths faster than the other Mercedes of George Russell. But both of them were outdone because Oscar Piastri and the other McLaren, who in FP3 had blown everyone away half a second faster, came through and set a 1:12.551, putting a gap of 2/10 to those coming behind. Hamilton came through and was 6th. Leclerc came and was 4th. 2/10 between the two. Someone was still missing, right? Yes, Max Verstappen, who came through and put his Red Bull in second, 1,000th ahead of Norris, but still just over 2/10 behind Piastri. With 5 minutes to go, the elimination zone had Hülkenberg, Ocon, Sainz, Yuki Tsunoda, and Bortoleto. So Bortoleto knew he had those 4/10 to find. And he found them. The TV followed his lap, and today I decided to watch it in the wide shot instead of the onboard because the onboard has the disadvantage of not showing the times. First sector, 0.348 faster than the threshold for 15th place, the target he needed to hit, but we also know that this can keep improving, so it wasn't a guarantee. Second sector, 0.534, in other words, he maintained it and even improved a bit more. Meanwhile, Hülkenberg crossed the line with a 1:13.190, and Gabriel at the finish line, 1:13.045, a good 1.5 tenths ahead of his teammate, enough to get in and stay in the top 10 of Q1. But of course, it's always good to wait. Some drivers with faster cars, including Yuki Tsunoda and Franco Colapinto, still had time to finish. But the Alpine of the Argentine driver showed up broken down. I thought for a second it was on the straight because of the shadow, but it was actually in the pit lane, so there was no red flag. Tsunoda still had to improve, and at that moment, Hülkenberg was already in 15th place. Sauber was crossing their fingers. After all, getting both cars into Q2 is a good thing. The second Red Bull made it through with Tsunoda, improving from 20th to 19th. Not enough to eliminate Hülkenberg or trouble Bortoleto, but then Lance Stroll, who had been at the back, broke into the top 10 and pushed Hulk into elimination. So, out went Hülkenberg, Ocon, Carlos Sainz with a Williams, and racing at home, Franco Colapinto and Yuki Tsunoda. Q2 started with Albon questioning Williams. I don't know why we're going out on track so early. And early he went. He set a 1:13.3, the best time right off the bat. Then came Oliver Behrman with a 1:13.650, ending up quite a bit behind, but then Max Verstappen showed up to restore order, setting a 1:12.3 and putting his Red Bull in first place. Gabriel Bortoleto made his first attempt with a 1:13.046. If you remember, that's 1,000th of a second slower than his second attempt in Q1, which was a 1:13.045. Then naturally the McLarens appeared at the top, with Oscar Piastri being the first to break into the 111s, clocking a 111.998. Second was Lando Norris, just 0.058 seconds, 58 thousandths behind. Very close, but still behind. With that, Verstappen ended up 0.360 off the lead and 0.302 behind Norris. Russell then commented, and the TV had already shown it, that there were some dark clouds on the horizon near turn 13, right? Bortoleto came out and recorded his second attempt with an impressive improvement of 0.3, 112.756. 11th position, not enough to make it to Q3, but already a good starting spot. He would end up dropping one spot to 12th, his best grid position in Formula 1, just a 10th behind Albon from Williams, not bad at all, and ahead of Lawson, Stroll, and Behrman. And those were the ones eliminated: Albon, Bortoleto, Lawson, Stroll, and Oliver Behrman. An excellent qualifying session from Bortoleto, it must be said. Apparently the updates are working and he did what mattered, made it to Q2, finished ahead of Hülkenberg, and their Q1 times weren't even that close. It was a 10.5 difference. When there's something good to say here, we say it. And this is an encouraging result on a track that, as we always mention here, is very demanding in terms of balance and aerodynamics. We'll have to see tomorrow how this car will handle the tires. The sky kept getting darker on the horizon. The teams then started checking the weather radar. Was it going to rain during Q3? Piastri went out on track and completed his first lap in a very curious move, clocking a 111.836 and quickly getting out of the way because Norris was coming up behind and he didn't want to give his teammate even the slightest bit of slipstream. I've talked about this before. When a driver likes the one coming up behind, wants to give them a little help and so on, he keeps accelerating down the straight to provide a slipstream, because the slipstream only works if the car in front is also going fast. Verstappen did this for Bortoleto in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, for example. He kept his foot down all the way to the end of the straight because he was finishing his lap while Bortoleto was just starting his. But with Norris and Piastri, or Piastri and Norris, that kind of thing isn't going to happen because every 10th of a second helps your teammate. Coincidence or not, Norris then started his lap and improved with a purple first sector, the sector that includes the main straight, 111.819. 819 is just barely faster than 836. Russell took third place on his first attempt with a 112.0. Verstappen crossed the line in fourth with a 112.3. Behind him was Lewis Hamilton, losing a 10th to the Ferrari, but then Leclerc completed his lap, taking fourth place and pushing Verstappen and Hamilton down to fifth and sixth. After that came Antonelli and Gasly, and without setting a time, saving their tires to keep the softs for the race, Hadjar and Alonso. Alonso, in fact, was going for just one attempt. He took advantage of an empty track to do his lap, and the Spanish crowd went wild and he didn't hold back. A 111.819, momentarily putting his Aston Martin in fifth place ahead of Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. Then came the final round of Q3, and Leclerc, I still don't understand what happened, appeared out of the car. Norris went out for his final attempt, setting a purple first sector, but Piastri was also on his lap, and he too set a purple first sector. If you're just tuning in and don't know, when a sector is marked purple, it means it's the fastest sector of the session. When it's green, it's your personal best sector, and when it's yellow, it means you haven't improved even on your own previous time. In the second sector, he was a 10th faster, but no longer improving on his own time. Norris. Then he crossed the finish line with a 111.755, taking first place and improving on his own time, but Piastri was right behind and seemed to be coming in fast, crossing with a 111.546, 2 whole tenths and a little bit more ahead, taking first place. Russell and Antonelli were third and fourth. Hamilton went through and put Ferrari in third, then Verstappen went through and improved on his own time, pushing Hamilton down to fourth, and Russell improved and placed his Mercedes between Max and Lewis. So the top 10, Oscar Piastri on pole position, then Lando Norris in second, making it a McLaren front row. Will there be a clash at the first corner? Third for Max Verstappen, fourth for George Russell, fifth for Lewis Hamilton, sixth for Kimi Antonelli, seventh for Leclerc, eighth for Gasly, ninth for Isaac Hadjar, and 10th for Fernando Alonso. So what can we expect for tomorrow? I think that everything so far really points to McLaren having increased their advantage over Red Bull. Let's wait and see in race pace, of course, but in qualifying, no one holds anything back. So for me, it's becoming more and more certain that Red Bull's shot, the hope they had, has backfired, and McLaren is now even further ahead than before. We still need to understand how Mercedes and Ferrari fit into this order and whether Verstappen will be able to pull something off in tomorrow's race, maybe with a different strategy, a safety car, or by taking advantage of the fact that the two McLaren cars could cause trouble for each other, or if it will just be a damage limitation race for him. Up front, the fight is open and intense. There are just 3 points separating the two main contenders for this championship. McLaren needs to be careful managing this situation. Bortoleto, with an updated car, starts from 12th, his best starting position so far. And now it's a matter of seeing how this car will handle the tires and watching how the others with updated cars will perform as well. Williams, for example, has been struggling in every session. Albon is the car just ahead. He didn't make it to Q3. Carlos Sainz was eliminated in Q1, and the forecast doesn't call for rain. Well, actually, it does mention a 10% chance of rain at race time. This is a track that really puts the car to the test in terms of balance, chassis, and aerodynamics. It has everything a circuit needs to test every aspect of what a car requires. There are heavy braking zones, a long straight, high-speed corners. In short, it's the complete package. That's why a good performance in Barcelona for Bortoleto in qualifying is encouraging, especially since we saw Hülkenberg was also doing well, but Bortoleto outperformed him, so we have to tip our hats to him. When someone does well, it's definitely worth highlighting and praising their qualifying effort. Great lap, not just that lap, but in every attempt he kept improving, giving that little extra push, showing there was more to extract, and he delivered right when it mattered. Because it's no use setting your best lap on the first run of Q1 and then falling behind afterwards. The best lap always has to be the last one. Tomorrow, the Spanish Grand Prix takes place at 10 o'clock in the morning, and at 15 to 10, 9:45, we'll start our alternative second screen broadcast on the 𝘾𝙤𝙥𝙾𝙤 project. I'll be on commentary, Matheus Filano will be doing the play-by-play, and joining us live from the front lines is Julianne Sarasoli, our newest contributor here on the channel. She talks to me and I'll share everything with you. I've already set up the 𝘾𝙤𝙥𝙾𝙤 live stream and it's pinned here in the first comment. After the race ends at 6 o'clock, I'll meet you again for the post-race live to talk about the news, what happened on and off the track, go over the week's news and rumors, read your super chats and your always sharp questions, and draw our Rim Happy giveaways for our paying subscribers. You know that, right? We have another new partner besides Formula Collection. Rim Happy is providing giveaways for us to raffle off to you. There are 293 stores in Brazil, and there's also a pinned link here in the first comment for you to check out the Formula One line that LEGO is launching this year, and some of those will be raffled off to our community tomorrow. There's still time for you to enter. If you're not a subscriber, click the join button or become a member. The link is also down below in the description. Choose one of the 4 plans: Gene Haas, Paddock Pass, Stefano Domenicali, and Lawrence Stroll. Obviously, the higher the tier, the better the prizes. But all the plans get to watch the videos at premiere, have priority for responses during live streams, are guaranteed to receive gifts, and starting from the Paddock Pass plan, you can join our WhatsApp group. There are about 220-something folks in there, chatting away while I'm working here. And according to them, it's the best WhatsApp group out there. I wouldn't know because it's the only one I'm in. Alright, so I'll see you tomorrow on 𝘾𝙤𝙥𝙾𝙤 at 9:45. Tune in, watch the race with us here, and at 6 p.m. for our post-race live stream. It's a date, okay? To make sure you don't miss anything we do here, you already know. Notification groups, Instagram, Telegram, and WhatsApp, plus our social media, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, and TikTok, where there's content all the time. And before we wrap up, leave a like. It's free, doesn't cost you anything. You know it really helps the channel a lot. And also leave your prediction. Do you think Bortoleto will score points tomorrow? Will Norris and Piastri crash in the first corner and Verstappen stay alive in this championship? Don't have a prediction? Just leave a little emoji. Tell us which Rim Happy Lego or which Formula Collection Mini you want to win. It doesn't matter. Let us know where you're watching from. Any contribution is important for the algorithm to keep spreading our content across the internet. Deal? Have a great Saturday afternoon. Enjoy. Thanks and a big hug.